All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the #1 show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you guys have heard me say it so many times. You're probably tired of hearing me saying it, but I will never get tired of saying it because I am Mr. ABC. Always be connecting. I talked to you guys a lot about the event I was going to be going to in Orlando, the Creators Fest, and the expectation that I had for it, being around just like-minded people, other creators, folks that really have it, that I can grab something from, pick something up from, and really learn from it. And the first one actually that I've met I met a ton of people at the event, but the first one who's been on the show since the event, I happened to meet because we would just happen to be sharing an elevator. Ended up chatting a little bit, and obviously, people that are in the creator world, there's always something that they have that they want to talk about. We kind of recognized each other's passion. So, all that being said, Miss Jessica Reyes, founder of Essential Sense, sense like not sense, but sense like you can smell it. Essential Sense. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I have so many emotions running through me. This is such a blessing. Like you mentioned, we literally met on the elevator.
Right.
We noticed that we were both wearing the badge, and we just
Yes.
started talking from there as we walked into the event.
Yes.
And I gave you a sample of my product,
Uh-huh.
and that one seed led into this. This is
Yes.
my first time being on a podcast, and I'm so blessed to be here. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Thank you for, again, being open enough to have that conversation because one of the things, if you remember that the founder of the event is a guy named Icon Becker, I believe it is. And one of the things that he did mention throughout the event was, when you learn to communicate, when you learn to open up your mouth, you can literally do anything. You can actually do anything you want to do in this world, but you have to have the willingness to open up your mouth and talk to people about what you do. You have to have, even if you may be a reserved person, a shy person, whatever it is, you have to figure out a way to break out of that shell and do something that you're so ridiculously passionate about that you want to tell everybody. It doesn't matter who it is, you just would tell everybody. And that's what you have. And I have a sample here of the product that you gave me, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. But I want to kind of go back to the beginning because I'm currently residing in South Florida. I spent a lot of time in Miami. That's where my aunt is. So I'm always back and forth between West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and all that. And that's actually where you grew up. So kind of walk us through a little bit about your background, how you grew up. I know growing up there isn't necessarily always the easiest, but I know there's a lot of entrepreneurial energy in Miami that obviously you were able to kind of attach onto it and apply it to your work now.
Oh my gosh. So there's so much to say about
And
just
there's no
like
time limits here,
literally.
by the way. So, if you gotta
Oh,
do
awesome.
it, yes.
Okay, good to know. Definitely, I have to kind of piggyback off of what you just said though before I continue. What Icon spoke about, it's literally about making connections. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And he emphasized that at the event. It was how he was able to make the event happen. And
Yes.
it's literally how I'm here because
Mhm.
my coaches led me to that event, and that event led me to you. But to go back to talk about kind of the beginning and how all of this started, well, I'm a first generation American. I'm a first generation college student.
Mm.
Spanish was my first language. So growing up, although I might have had a lot of advantages compared to some of my family members, there
Right.
was still a huge learning gap and a huge educational gap in terms of not having the people in my family that could firsthand walk me through a lot of things that are required to succeed in the United States. And
Wow.
it was more of just that like emotional encouragement, but there was never any physical, like, let me sit down with you and teach you how to do it. I had to go out and figure it out on my own, just with pure will and drive.
Right.
And so for a long time, I thought I wanted to go into the education space because knowing that other people need the same kind of help I needed, I thought I wanted to offer that.
Mm.
But after working in the education space for a little bit, I realized that I'm just a natural leader and business is really what drives me.
Mhm.
So I switched my major and I got my bachelor's in science and supervision management.
Right.
And, right after college, I started working in the corporate world in the administration,
Mhm.
field. And again, I had a realization that I just wasn't meant to work for other people. I'm a natural leader. I have my own way of being. I have my own concepts and theories that I want to apply. And so, that kind of just was a seed inside of me, but I didn't have an actual concrete idea that I wanted to follow.
Hmm.
So I just kind of like took my time with figuring it out. And shortly after college, while I was working in the administration field, I I found out I was pregnant and I had my daughter, and that kind of sparked the extra bit of fire within me to
Right.
start a business, because that's when it really hit me like I don't have time to waste.
Yeah, you don't have forever.
So
So,
it's like when it really like it just hits you like, oh man, like this is it. Like I have to do it not just for me, but for my child now.
right.
And so postpartum, I dealt with a lot of emotional imbalances. It was very stressful.
Mhm.
I wanted to push myself to start a business. I started drop shipping, and it just didn't hit well with me because I realized very quickly that the audience that I had
Mhm.
was not interested in drop shipping products. They were more interested in something that was either handmade or
Right.
something that the person that they're supporting, actually created.
Right.
So kind of going back a little bit into my culture has a lot of herbal and oil medications that people consume.
Right.
In Cuba, there's very little resources. So, for the most part, people use what's in their natural surroundings to feed themselves and medicate themselves however needed.
Right.
And so, I do have a lot of background knowledge on that. And then that's when I realized I can use herbs and oils to
Mhm.
help people, and I can help myself, I can help them, and I can make this a business, right?
Right.
And that's when Essentials number one was created, which is the product that I shared with you.
Right.
It is my first collection, and it's a fragrance. It's a unisex fragrance that pretty much anybody can wear. My niche is moms, just because I was a mom dealing with emotional imbalances, and the product helps with the nervous system. But anybody from children to adults, men, women, it doesn't matter. Anybody can use it. When I first started testing it, I tested it on myself and my daughter.
Mhm.
So for me, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and just kind of like sadness, postpartum. And my daughter was constantly overstimulated. It
Mhm.
used to take me literally sometimes 3 to 4 hours to get her down for bed at night. Me and her dad would take turns. We would have to give her multiple bottles to get her down.
Right.
When I started testing the product on her, it went from 3 to 4 hours to 15 to 20 minutes to get her down for bed. I would apply the oil after bedtime. It became part of our routine.
Right.
She started relaxing easier, and I started feeling easier just in my body.
Yeah.
Working, doing things around the house, dealing with her, like everything changed for me. And then that's when I knew, like, for sure, if I can help myself, I'm going to be able to help other people. So I started selling it, sharing the same story with you, giving everybody my background of how everything happened to be. And people have loved it so far. I've
Right.
gotten so many reviews. I've had women literally cry
Mhm.
because when they find out about the product, they find about my journey and my story and how it came to be. It hits home for them.
Right.
So that's something that to me is so beautiful and inspirational. And I just really hope to continue putting my product out there and eventually creating other lines for other benefits
Right.
that I can, you know, make a difference.
Yeah, and the thing is, you said a lot of very very important things there, and I don't want it to get brushed over because when you talk about the way you grew up, like you mentioned, a lot of the people you were around weren't speaking English. They weren't there to support you, and you had initially wanted to be in education. I teach now currently, and I remember actually having a conversation with another teacher who's from Puerto Rico, and we were talking about how everyone is an educator. Everyone essentially gets into the business because they want to help people, and I want to kind of hear a little bit from you when it comes to specifically, and I've done workshops in Miami. I know exactly what you mean when you say you wanted to help people because it can seem commercially like it's a great town, great party place, but there is a lot of struggle. There's a lot of young ladies that are going through a lot of different things when it comes to just how they're able to grow up and what they're around.
Yeah.
What did you see then that made you say, hey, it's my role to help these young ladies get through a certain situation so they know that life is bigger than what they're just seeing in Miami, and I can be that role model and things like that. So I'll let you talk about it a little bit.
So actually gives me chills to hear you ask these kind of questions and just kind of like reflect back
You're
on
on
my
the
childhood.
you're on the number one show for innovative teamwork for This is what we do here. We get it going.
Oh my gosh. So that's a deep question, but I mean, there's so much to unpack with that, but really, okay. So specifically, I'm from Homestead, Florida, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
that's
that's
exit
way
one.
that's way down south.
That's way down south. That's, right, the last town before the Florida Keys.
Hmm.
And for a long time, Homestead was, just the middle of nowhere. Nobody wanted anything to do with it.
Hmm.
There was a big gap between the old money, the people that own nurseries and their families had been in that area for generations,
Right.
and then the minorities of Hispanics and Blacks.
Oh man.
So it was very difficult in terms of when your family doesn't speak the language and your family doesn't have the resources, you
Yeah.
go to school where maybe the resources are available, but your parents don't know how to connect that and how to get you into the right rooms to give you the opportunities that you need to keep building.
And they're just trying to
So,
learn language at that point. Like her name is the teacher I'm referring to. Her name is Miss Santiago, and she would tell me that she actually started out in Orlando teaching. I was telling her I was there. Just learning the language and getting, on that track is a challenge in itself. And a lot of the people now that grow up in the States knowing the English, you guys take it for granted. I'm just gonna call you out now. You take these
yeah.
little things for granted. It's one of the things I learned moving out here to South Florida. Is a lot of, whether it is Hispanic or another country or whatever, coming here new is really, really difficult. And it's a challenge that a lot of people don't understand. So, that's important that you speak on that as well.
And then also constantly being identified as a minority, as first generation, as low income, that creates this mindset where you feel like you're always lacking, right?
Yeah.
And so it was really difficult for a long time. And I found representation through other Spanish teachers
Mm.
where I could kind of see myself in terms of, okay, if they're Spanish and they were able to do it and they seem happy and successful, then there has to be potential for me.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just women that I wanted to help. It was just the the low income community in general that I
Right.
felt really needed my support. So for some time I was doing camps where I was working with migrant children,
Mm.
giving them college readiness classes,
Right.
um, helping with English, teaching them, what it is that you can do to set yourself up for success.
Mhm.
I was always a natural leader. So I also, I was a cheer captain and I did dance and I was very involved and I did a lot of volunteer work.
Right.
So I actually was awarded 2 presidential volunteer service awards for
Right.
completing over 1,000 hours in community service.
Mhm.
And it's something that just really drove me to give back because I knew how important it was. But I also fell victim to that Miami culture of that party lifestyle, of like that hot girl scene where, like, you're just always, doing one thing. You're at one party, you're at one club, you're doing that. And that kind of like really took away from me being able to show up even more
Mhm.
in terms of like my purpose, right? And so to speak on what you're asking for women, it took me a long time to realize that Miami is not what you said, what it is commercially. There's
Right.
a lot of struggle, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of drug problems, there's a lot of image problems.
Mhm.
And I had to like literally sit with myself,
Mhm.
take therapy, and realize that a lot of cultural norms that I grew up with
Right.
were just not right. Just because it happened to me or it happened to somebody else and it has continued to happen over the years doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
And so for the most part, Hispanic women, we're kind of like the stay at home, raise the kids,
Mhm.
serve your husband, and don't really do much for themselves. Like I have women in my family that don't drive, that have never held a job, and kind of just don't have any kind of self image.
Right.
And so my mom being one of those women that she does drive, but she never really did something to like, this is my thing. I like to cook, or I want to be a chef, or I want to be whatever, she was just the stay-at-home mom, and that's what she always identified as. And that gave me the drive to go into business and then realize that I have the capabilities to do more with myself, and I can still be a stay-at-home mom and I can still be a good wife, but I can also still serve my community in ways that I know that I can show up for them.
Yeah,
So
I'm happy you said that. There's actually this girl, I think it is, where's Colombian. Yeah, she's Colombian, and she's just graduating college. And I think she just finished college. But anyway, me and her we kind of were friends, and she was talking about how she's in her selfish phase now, and oh, I'm not going to date anyone because I want to focus on my career and all. I'm like, would you shut up with that? You could have all. You could have both. Why is it that so many women have this mentality of, okay, I'm gonna be the career person, but right now I'm gonna put dating on hold. I'm gonna be just the wife, and I'm gonna put my business on hold. You can have all of it. I mean, you along with multiple women have been on this show that have debunked this myth out there that you gotta choose between having a great marriage and a great business and being a great mother. You don't have to choose any of that. You can have everything the way you want it. It's just a mindset. It's just a matter of focusing. And I bring that up because I remember actually now you're bringing me back to the time where I actually hosted a workshop in Hialeah, and I think it was Miami. It was it Miami Springs? I think it was. I forgot
yeah.
the name of the high school, but I was hosting a social media workshop for all the female athletes of the school. And a lot of the stuff that you had mentioned in terms of image, in terms of what it is they're supposed to be doing, I can say it to them as a man. But the truth is, when it comes to the way they get looked at on social media and everything that gets assumed of them, or even I'm sure you may have been judged and things like that, they don't really see a way out. So if you were to kind of speak to them a little bit when it came to that experience from high school to college, where now you're adults and it's like, look, Jessica, you ain't a teenager no more. Now it's time to adult a little bit. What was that? And you sort of talked about it a little bit, but did you just go right to college? Was it an easy decision? How was that transition for you when it became time to, kind of put your big boy pants on and join the real world?
So I kind of have two answers for
Yeah,
this.
go ahead.
For in terms of like going right into college and kind of figuring that all out, it was it was kind of like, can I use bad words on here?
You can cuss as much as you'd like.
I was gonna say it was a shit show. It was a shit show, okay?
But
Because like I said, I was very caught up in the party scene for a while and that Miami culture. And
this is
when I
senior year
first,
in high school you're talking about?
oh man, all of high school
All of high school.
and, post high school and the very beginning of college where I wasn't really focused enough and dedicated enough in my work and what I was doing to be completely present.
Right.
And that kind of affected me because college, obviously, it's all self driven. Just
What
because
school?
you're paying to be there doesn't mean the teachers are going to hold your hand the whole way?
What school was
So
it?
I went to Miami-Dade College.
Miami-Dade. Okay, cool.
Yes, so I actually obtained my whole 4-year degree, my bachelor's degree from Miami-Dade College. So maybe that's a little
Oh,
hack if
what?
anybody's listening to this and
Yeah.
you're low income and you're worried about going to school and don't know how you're going to get a whole 4-year degree. You can get FAFSA. You can go to Miami-Dade College, pick one of their 4-year degrees and get paid while you're going because you're going to get money back.
That's all. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that because there's a lot of high school kids that think they need to be at an FIU or an FAU or even a University of Miami, UM, because of the ego. But I didn't even realize they have a 4-year program at Miami-Dade College.
Yes, and little by little, they've been adding
Yeah,
different fields of study,
yeah,
but there is a good amount of, majors that you can choose at Miami-Dade College and get a 4-year degree. And there's just as much opportunity and even more because of the fact that they're a smaller school.
yeah,
Each teacher and each campus is able to pour into the students a lot more than a
yeah,
huge campus like FIU or FSU, where I'm not knocking them because, man, I would have loved to go to one of those schools,
right.
but I'm just saying, don't knock Miami-Dade College because there's a lot to do there. But basically, I flunked out of my first year of college. I failed all my classes. I actually lost FAFSA because of it.
Oh,
And for a very short period of time, I had to go into debt and use my credit cards, which my parents didn't know anything about at the time.
oh my God.
And I started paying for my classes with my credit cards to be able to bring my GPA back up so that I can get FAFSA back. And then I was able to do it. I dedicated myself. And then that's when I finished my AA, switched over, finished my AA in education, and then switched over to business and went from there.
Wow.
But I do want to give a hack to anybody that's listening to this, and maybe, they're not feeling like they're sitting in purpose in Miami.
Mhm.
Leaving your hometown at a young age is the best hack I think I can give anybody for growth,
Yeah.
because it will remove you from any negative environments that you feel that you're constantly being sucked into, and it'll give you the space to reflect and develop yourself how you feel comfortable without having people around you that you think are going to judge you.
Yeah, one thing I listen, I could not, you will not hear one argument with Greek when it comes to that. I left, I grew up in Maryland, but I went to school in Tennessee my freshman year, tore my ACL, had to move back home, and then I finished off school in New York. And I was around, you're like 27 now, right? I
Yeah.
was on your age when I first moved. I drove from Maryland all the way to Florida, and I haven't left Florida since. I'm like, man, this is me. I love being out here. And you're right. When it comes to if you, and then we're talking about the people that really want to make a change. If you want to just sit back and accept what the world gave you and not really step out of your comfort zone, then hey, we may not be talking to you. But if you actually do feel it in your heart, in your bones, those things tugging on your heartstrings, you got to leave hometown. You got to just get out
Yeah.
of it and figure out. Even if you have to go back, just understanding going out, this is a big world, and if you stay confined to that one community that you grew up in, eventually you start to get swallowed up into things that feel normal and feel comfortable to you. So with that, talk a little bit about your move to Orlando essentially. What was it that made you finally pull away and say, look, I'm going to build this thing with my husband and start a family and just start fresh and build what you're building now?
So I live in Ocala, Florida, which is a little bit off of Orlando. I'm further to the west,
Mhm.
but I'm very close. It's still Central Florida.
Okay.
And what actually drove us to move here wasn't any of the things I just mentioned. All those things I mentioned are from experience and advice that I would give somebody in their early 20s, because it took me way too long to come to those conclusions.
Oh,
But I moved here during COVID, during the middle of the pandemic,
oh
because
man.
yeah, my dad, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer at the
Oh,
time, and he's doing much better now. He's all clear.
that's-
But during that time, there was so much uncertainty,
mhm,
and nobody knew where the world was headed. Nobody knew what was going to happen,
mhm,
and us three, we made the decision, to my mom, my dad, and me, to put the house up for sale. I helped them.
mhm.
We found a real estate agent who was my professor at the time,
Okay.
and we sold the property down in Homestead, and they used the money that they made from that property to buy the property here in Ocala cash. So my parents were able to retire, and they were able to buy the house. They don't have a mortgage, weighing on their back anymore. And I was able to focus on building my life the way that I wanted. So I didn't meet my spouse until I moved here. And everything started happening very fast once I got here, because that's when I was truly able to align with myself. I sat in my room for months during
Mhm,
the pandemic when everything was shut down, and I started diving into a lot of emotional things, behavioral change,
mhm.
um, reading, stoicism, really reflecting back on my whole journey in college. And then I had a few classes left, so I finished my degree virtually,
All right.
and then here we are. Things just started happening really fast once I moved here.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing because a lot of times we hear professional athletes retiring their parents or people having a goal to retire their parents, and to know that what they went through, and you're very cognizant, you're very aware of what they went through just to get you to the States. And they said, look, Jessica, you're going to be the one to take us to the next level. So that feeling of retiring your mom and dad, I'm sure is something that's truly rewarding for you. And I gotta congratulate you on that, because I know that's something that may get overlooked in terms of what you've accomplished, because you've accomplished a lot of great things as well. So, all that being said now, I read a post, I was on your social media earlier today, and I saw that you actually had a job and you decided, hey, I'm done, I'm quitting it, and you and your husband are going to get into selling this full time. And the reason I
Yeah.
have it here, because I want to do like a live showing of me opening it for the first time. I want the founder to walk me through how to use it. But before we get there, talk to us about, what went into that decision, how you guys were able to make it work, and kind of what you and his day to day is to make it so this works. And because that's another thing that a lot of couples and a lot of people, when it comes to business, that breaks a lot of people up. It's actually obviously bringing you guys closer together is the business. So go ahead, the microphone is yours.
Oh my gosh. So it was actually such a difficult decision,
Yeah.
and it's something that we kind of still contemplate on nights, certain nights when we're having bad days, because I was the head of household for a little bit. My job was, very paying us very well. Christian is a plumber, and
So
so
was it in the same field, like doing some of the similar work?
I was doing export documentation. So I was working for a logistics company remotely, and my job was to audit and prepare paperwork for cargoes to clear once they arrive to their destination,
Oh,
depending on the country. I was working with Taiwan, Chile, Peru, Cuba.
right.
Um, so there was just a lot of paperwork,
Yeah.
and
No,
it was,
it doesn't have a lot to do with this. So it must have
I
been
don't got nothing to do with
that's yeah,
this.
your
And
heart's there, and you're like, got to do it for the check.
yeah,
But, damn, I want to get back to my baby.
exactly. That's what I'm saying, because it's like I had the business skills, I have the clerical
Yeah.
skills, I have the self ambition to wake up and work a remote position. Why not, right? Like I definitely could have kept doing it and lived comfortably, but I wasn't happy. And
Yeah.
even though I was working remotely, I was still not able to be present with my daughter because I had to get her into a daycare because it was such a demanding position. Millions of dollars were running through my hands in terms of documents that if I messed anything up in a cargo ship, got to the destination and the cargo couldn't clear, that's on me. So it was constantly that pressure of making sure I wasn't messing up, but then I wanted to be present with my daughter, and
Mhm.
she's only 2 right now. So it was very difficult postpartum, like I said, emotional imbalances and not being present with her in the ways I wanted to be, having to pay for childcare when I wanted to be the one that was raising my daughter. And even though I was home, I wasn't really like cleaning all the time and cooking and doing things. I still had to clock out at 5 and do everything else like anybody that works in an office.
Ex-
Just because I'm here all day doesn't mean I was just lollygagging. And I
Exactly.
think that's another misconception that people take from remote positions, because you still have to work like you're in an office. There's no difference.
Hmm.
Um,
And then with COVID
and
too, this happened. COVID kind of opened the door a little bit, but it still is a misconception in terms of what actually gets done at the home when you're working remotely. And now with COVID, once people saw that you could do work virtually, oh man, everything's going virtual now. There's all sorts of remote positions opening up now, but you still have to be very present, especially if your job is going to require you to be fully there. And like you said, important stuff where you mess up one comma goes here, this one goes there. All of a sudden, they're looking at you, and then you got a big problem, huge problem.
yeah, and like it has opened a lot of doors,
Yeah.
which is why we're both here, because there's a lot of opportunity in the space of, you know, the internet. Like there's just so much capability, like so many capabilities and so much potential, and it's definitely something for people to take advantage of. But you also have to kind of pick and choose what you want to go into, because if you want to live with purpose, you have to find things that truly align with what it is you want to represent on and offline, right? And so, that job was just draining me. I just couldn't take it anymore. And it was a difficult decision for us to make. It was a difficult financial decision. We had to take a huge pay cut, and and result of it, we lost one of our cars. We almost were displaced. We almost lost where we were living. you know uh, we almost lost the second car, and we had to pull Audrey from daycare because at that point we couldn't afford the daycare anymore. And that's okay, because I'm here, and we're blessed in many other ways, but there was a lot of setback in that decision, but not in a way that I see it where we're hurting in terms of, we still have the house, we still have one car, we still have power and internet, and we still have food, and we have each other. And I
Mhm.
have my computer, which is all I need to keep making money and building my dreams, right? So, you could sit here and can talk about all the negative stuff and all the hardship along with it, But really, compared to my parents' upbringing, compared to what most of my family and my ancestors went through in terms of struggle,
Mhm.
I'm highly favored and very blessed. So
Nice.
I can't complain. I just got to keep pushing, got to have that tunnel vision, got
Mhm.
to keep putting in the work, showing up for myself, and it's gonna pop off.
Well, I'm glad you said that because, when I was looking through your stuff and the way you make the products, there's a really detailed way that you go about making these scents. So kind of walk us through. Well, first of all, walk us through because you mentioned it earlier. What does it actually do for people? You mentioned that it helps your daughter, the anxiety go down. No, you're big
Yeah.
into wellness and stuff like that. So talk us through a little bit about what it actually does for people, what goes into it, and then again where people can purchase and where they can support and all that good stuff. And then whenever you're ready, I'm ready to open it up and figure out how to how to use how you would tell the first time users to go about using it.
So the first thing everybody needs to know is that it is a fragrance. So if you wanted to use it as a daily wear just because you like the smell of it, go for it, use it as a fragrance.
Mm-hmm.
But it has benefits. It has medical benefits because it is infused with essential oils. So essential oils have been around for thousands of years. It's a very old school form of medicating the body and treating wounds, treating mental illnesses, and just like, oh my gosh, there's just so much I can go into. But to stay focused on the product,
Yeah.
I use two specific essential oils, which is ylang ylang and bergamot. Ylang ylang is a flower and bergamot is a citrus. Combined, the two oils, which are extracted from the plant, hold properties that help regulate the nervous system. So it serves as anxiety relief, it serves as depression relief, it promotes better sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Bergamot has actually even been studied in terms of lowering blood pressure and lowering blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody's listening to this and decides to test out the product, just be cautious in terms of overusing the product, because you want to make sure that your body doesn't have any kind of second kind of reactions to it. As I'm not a medical professional, and I'm just using old school forms of medicine that I hopefully one day can get FDA approved and backed up by bigger names. But we're kind of just starting here, and it's just something that if you're willing to trust me, I hope that it really helps you, because I know it can. I've helped myself with it. I've helped my daughter with it. Like we were mentioning, it helped her with being overstimulated. So those benefits from the flower helped relieve her nervous system, so she was able to unwind in a way that her body wasn't naturally doing. And from there, I've been able to help other mothers in terms of their postpartum or just general stress and anxiety, because a lot of people, not just mothers, are living day to day with high levels of crippling stress because of the financial and economic situation in the country right now. And that constant like processing in your mind of like, I have this to-do list, I have to do this tomorrow, how am I going to feed the kids this week, how am I going to pay that bill next month, like that constant stress that keeps people up at night, that is directly related to the physical pain that people are experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So the better you can relax your mind and the better you can relax your body, the less pain you're actually going to feel physically. And so that's another thing that I've, gone into interviewing customers and sitting down with them and kind of getting them to know them at a personal level in terms of what they're dealing with.
Right.
And that's a correlation that I've, discovered that people that are dealing with high levels of stress are dealing with high levels of physical pain. It's a one-to-one in every single person that I have personally spoken to.
Right. Right. So when you're and we might as well just do it now. So I'm opening it up now.
Yes, sir.
You're open here, and you mentioned this to me too at the event. We put it here, and this is like because it's kind of late. I'm about to go to sleep myself. We put it here, and then we just rub it. All right, so this is what's
Yes.
happening.
The best way to use essential oils is to put them wherever you have a pressure point in your body. So
Okay,
the wrist are a good place because you have a accumulation of nerves in this area. Behind the ears, on the chest,
got it.
on the creases of your arm. I'm not sure what this part of the arm is
Oh
called.
yeah, I like it. I like it. I'm with you. This is live, guys. This is it. This is good.
Oh, live reaction. I love it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I like it. I like it. My family's from Trinidad too, so you know we're into. My dad would go to certain places and get oils and stuff like that. So this is I can. I'm not bullshit. I don't bullshit you guys on this show, so you guys already know. I'm not gonna
And a
send.
little goes a long way. So
Right.
I don't know how much you just used, but it seemed like a little bit
Literally a
to
drop.
me.
It was a drop. Literally a drop. Yeah.
Amazing. You don't need much. It is oil based. So the carrier oil is just good old vegetable oil, guys. That's what I use as the foundation. I add in the fragrance, which is the scent, and then I add in the essential oils, which are the mental, physical, and emotional benefits that you will be receiving from the product.
Right.
I have two different sizes. So the one that I gave you is the 5 milliliter, and then I have a 10 milliliter, which is a roller. I offer the roller because for most people that want to use it for the physical benefits and mental benefits, will use it, and it's much easier to use the roller. But
Right.
some people like to diffuse it in their homes. So they'll buy oil diffusers and they'll put in a couple of drops or even an oil warmer, and they'll use the dropper, which is much easier to use for those things. And there's been so much feedback and so many ways that I can use the same product.
Right.
So stay tuned for that because I'm going to come out with several other items within the same collection.
Yeah, well, that's actually what I was gonna. I'm glad you brought that up. That's what I wanted to talk to you about next, is because you mentioned opening up other lines and doing other things with FDA and stuff like that. So, can you tell people what's next? What do you have coming down the pipeline? How they can get in touch with you if they're interested in hearing more, all that good stuff.
So the easiest way to get in touch with me is through Instagram. That's my main platform. So for the business, it's essentials.scents.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can put that in the caption because a lot of people misspell it because there's so many S's in there.
Right. Yeah,
But
everything will be in the show notes. So.
perfect. And then we can do that. We can, and then I can also give you guys my link, which I'm going to drop on August 31st. I'm currently working on restocking the line. And that's kind of my starting base from now moving forward, where I need to drive in sales, I need to drive in cash flow, and then continue reinvesting that money. Because long term, I do want to focus on e-commerce. I've done a lot of pop-ups since I've started. And though it's a great way to connect with the community,
Yeah.
doing less physical work and going out is the goal.
Yeah, you have to. That's the problem with those, is you have to actually be there for those. Not like you said, everything is online, but then with something like this, you also have to have the mix where people can, like I just got the experience, if they're gonna actually, pull out their pocketbook and pay for it. So,
Yes, and that kind of was also what took me to Creator Fest because originally I joined the coaching group where I told you my coaches, they've been drilling me, giving me a whole boot camp in terms of digital marketing and how to really help my niche
Mhm.
through the digital space, because of the fact that I can't give you my sample through the digital space and I can't give you a sample for you to smell before you buy it. I have to make sure that my content and my message is properly communicating all of this for me to be able to convert my views and my reach engagement
Yeah,
through the platforms. So
yeah.
that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
You got to give the coach a shout out after that, because
Oh
I've said
yeah.
it so many times. Hire a coach because you just don't know what you don't know. So you got to give your coach a shout out.
Yes, so shout out to Brittany and shout out to John, man. They've literally changed my life.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey since I've met them. It's been about 90 days now, and I've been through a mental boot camp. Like I can't even tell you on how many levels they've helped me. I can, man, it's like emotional,
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
my ego, that's something that I realized that needs work as well in business. When you're starting your own brand, you have to fix your ego. You
You did.
can't let every little thing affect you, and you can't do everything ego driven. You have to care about what the people are telling you and about the feedback, whether good or bad. You
Mhm.
have to know how to take it and run with it, and
Yeah.
how to adjust and how to innovate. And even if you feel like this is how I have to do it, sometimes you have to be coachable, and you have to understand that that way might not be the way the world is going.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that we have to adapt to as entrepreneurs, but
Mhm.
here we are
Yeah, shout
doing
out to
it.
the coach, man. That listen, I can't tell you how important it is what you said is for you listeners to grab, because even I'm not sure if did you stay you stayed till Saturday, right? When apparently there was supposed to be some major feature speaker, and then he was online, and then Icon did it, I thought was the best move in terms of just being honest with us as an audience and say, do you guys want it on? Do you not want it on? And to me, he gained someone, a fan, like someone I really bang with because he was able to be on. Now, I didn't know, I almost forget, was that Ty Lopez? That's it. I didn't know really who he was before, but apparently he was a big deal. And the fact that he stepped up and said, I don't want it playing like this because it wasn't exactly how I saw it. That's what I mean when I say relationships with your audience, relationships with your clients, relationships with your customers. Those are going to take you so very far because it has to be genuine. You cannot bullshit people. I don't know how many times
No.
you can't bullshit people. So
That's insane though. I actually didn't see any of that. I didn't know because I was only able to make it on Friday, which is when we met. So I was only there for the duration of
yeah, that
Friday.
happened. That happened Saturday.
That's
That's crazy.
that's insane. And I really applaud Icon, man. If we can give him a shout out, because I mean
Right.
that's how we met, and he changed so many lives this weekend.
Huh?
It's insane what he was able to do, and knowing his story and knowing kind of how it happened for him, and like even somebody
Yeah.
folding on him like that last minute is insane because he went through so much to build it.
Right.
And if we can leave one thing with the viewers, it's man to follow your dreams.
Right. Did you know him before, or did you meet him?
So I met him through Britt and John,
Oh,
because he held a Zoom for the whole class,
oh,
and the
okay.
coaching group was able to meet him about 70 days ago through
Oh,
a Zoom call that he held for us personally to kind of just educate us on what he was doing and
right.
his vision. So this was before it even was like
Yeah, that's good.
110%
I
that
was
it
the
was
first
going
time I
to
met him.
happen.
I didn't even know who he was until because I thought it was Kira. Like he was telling us Kira. I didn't realize he was Kira. I thought it was an actual person. So
I can't even believe he was Kira
yeah,
because some of my peers and I, man, we were like stressing over like, is it an AI bot?
right,
Does he have some sort of CRM that's like insanely
right,
relatable? Because it was sending out memes to some of us, like
right.
giving out jokes. Turns out, it was Icon.
It was him. Man. So Jessica, this has been amazing. The way I close it, and for the listeners, I know you guys aren't going to believe this, but this was her first ever podcast, so we got to give
Oh
her.
my gosh.
She
Yay.
absolutely, man, doesn't
Thank you
didn't
for
sound
this.
like it. Sounds like she's been on it for many different shows. But the way I close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are back to being teenage version of yourself, the young Miami Jessica. She's out partying, she's living it up, but in the back of her head, that teenage girl knows there's just more to this. There's a little bit more, but she's still in the club doing her thing. Pretend that little teenage girl came into the Zoom room. Give her some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
Oh man, I think the biggest encouragement I can offer that version of Jessica is to always speak up. And I think that for too long, I was scared to speak up and to make myself noticeable in the room. So that goes without saying that we each carry our own power. And my power at that time that I didn't realize was my voice. I have so much to share and I have so much I can talk about that is relatable to the average person that at that time I was neglecting because I thought I was the only one going through it. And I'm not. And I can help a lot of people, and anybody can help a lot of people just by showing up and speaking up. So,
Mm-hmm. I have absolutely nothing to add. I thought that was heartfelt. It was genuine. And for you regular listeners, you guys know the reason I close out all the shows with that is because I'm talking directly to you. I asked the guest that question, but it's more so you understand you're not the only one going through it. There's always people out here to help you. Just like you said, speak up, open your mouth, and things will happen to you. One of my favorite Jay-Z lines: "A closed mouth does not get fed." All right.
period.
Period. All that, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.
Thank you. Have a beautiful night.